I left the city, I've been browsing, treading water that they drowning. My head on a swivel, yeah. It's only really my surroundings.
Hello and welcome to episode 142 of the Smash Accept podcast. I'm your host, Michael Royer. You can find me on Twitter at DynastyDadFF. John, that's actually starting to sound like a normal Twitter handle again now. So getting that out there. Man, I'm excited for tonight's show because one, John's back on. Two, we're going to talk about a topic here that I know for you personally has been a little bit uneasy. Like we've perfected the idea of a rebuild, the process of a rebuild. And now, John, like I got you to really get into that year one punt, which is similar type philosophy as a rebuild. Now we got to figure out what to do for year two. And I feel like this is an area where people are just not comfortable.
Yeah, man. What's up, y'all? John coming back at you. I can't wait to break this down, partially because I'm going through it real time right now. We're within a month of the draft and a lot of these rookie drafts. And I got to tell you, because we talked about it so much on the pod, this idea of a punt and building around this 23 class, I'm getting a ton of questions. And so I think we're going to work through some of that here, and it's going to be super practical for a lot of you that are in this same situation that we are leading up to this draft. So really looking forward to breaking this down with you.
Yeah, and like we talked about when we did the rebuild show, I have done 8 of these. I've instructed over 50 people that are. I know that's a small sample size and it's growing, but out of the 8 that I did, John, I was in the championship year 2 in all of them. And I think we're in that area now where we assessed our team, we went ahead and we made sure we had our first from last year. We created those positional voids, we made those splash trades, and now it's like and we sold all those vets. So right now we got rosters that are they're not filled in, but they have a lot of liquid assets, a lot of ways to move around. And I think when we're talking about year 2, I think just like when we talked about the rebuild, step 1 is still assessing your team. And I think there's different levels of this. Right now I have 3 rebuilds that are going into year 2. One of them is absolutely stacked. I mean, I have Jalen Hurts, Trevor Lawrence, Javonte Williams, Cooper Kupp, James Cook. Like I know James Cook doesn't sound sexy, but Wan'Dale Robinson, guys like that could play. But I also have picks 1 through 5, so that team is like, right now I'm ready to go. Smash 3, you have a scenario where it's like, okay, I have Jamar Chase and Breece Hall and 1 through 12, but I don't have any quarterbacks, aside from Jordan Love. And then the other one in Smash 1, now it has Deshaun Watson, it has Russell Wilson, 4 of the best wide receivers in the game. So now I got to fill in some running backs. So right now what you're trying to do when you're assessing your roster is, again, you guys have been sending those rosters to me. After we did the rebuild, I can't even tell you how many of you have been like, Dad, is this ready for a rebuild? Where should we go? And I think what you really got to look at is what positions do I need to fill, right? We've talked about if I need running backs and I have the 101 and the 104, 105, you're set.
Pretty money.
You're going to have 2 future RB1s for the next several years, and you're going to move in there. So I think right now we just have to honestly sit back and be like, okay, am I ready to go? Because the biggest problem to me, John, is you push the chips in too early, and you use those first, and you buy Cooper Kupps, you buy Devontae Adams, you buy those guys, and you don't win it. It hurts. Yeah, I've done that before on some of my other teams. So let's talk about your team a little bit, right?
Yeah.
You're in that area. You punted year 1. So now you're into, which is similar to rebuild. You're in that area now where it's like, what do I do year 2? Am I ready to go? What are some of those things on your roster that are really important to make those deciding factors of, am I ready for year 2?
Yeah. Nobody wants to peak too early, right? I mean, we got these listeners out there. You guys know what we're talking about. So no, seriously.
I peaked in high school, man.
I was gonna say, no. So there's a couple of strategies that I really like here in year 2 in a punt, and I think we need to really break this down. Just like you said, rosters can go a couple different ways. You may have enough there to start pushing the chips in now, but if, for example, you really don't have anything at all at QB, you may want to consider a different strategy, which is a building around the 23 class and the 24 class and giving it 2 years to really nail the roster.
Yeah.
For example, like if you want to try to contend now, but you only have these rookie pick assets, do you really think that you're going to be able to go for a title with Anthony Richardson and Bryce Young in their rookie seasons?
Mm-hmm.
That's a risk. So you got to really kind of break this down. If you're waiting on running back, like if you listen to our rebuild pods, you very likely vacated running back and maybe tight end. And so you're just absolutely walking into a beautiful gold mine of a situation with not only first round picks, but second round picks that we're going to have at running back, some probably league winners. And you may just want to consider going for it now. However, like, let's break this down one step further. If you're really weaker at wide receiver and you have these rookie picks, we need to really think about that, because is this the absolute best class to build around wide receiver? Or maybe you wait and do some of that with the 24 class. Maybe it makes sense to wait a bit. Or are you going to package these things and try to buy those wide receivers that are going to allow you to compete? So there's really two distinct strategies. Right, exactly. Yeah. That's why we got to talk this through.
Yeah. So like if you did it the tried and true, the way that we've set it up, I'll reference my Smash One team. It's Deshaun Watson. My running backs are Mike Boone and Gus Edwards. But I have the 101, the 103, and the 105. So I'm getting Bijan, and potentially if I don't get Gibbs, I'm gonna trade for another one. Wide receivers are Brown, Lamb, Waddle, and Judy. Goddard's the tight end, and Russell Wilson's my other quarterback. So there's just a couple pieces there. You got to look at those things. That's why we always talk about running back as the easiest one to fill in. Because if you don't have the wide receivers, you're not ready. You're just not, So the second step in the process, we're assessing the roster, and that is the most difficult one. So honestly, send it in. If you guys did the year one punt, if you did the rebuild, send them to us. Number 2 is don't trade your 24 first. We talk about getting your 24 first was so important for your rebuild. If you're in year 2 of your punt, don't get rid of that asset. If you have other 24 first, sure. But you never know what's going to happen this year. We could have, we love this class, but heaven forbid, Bijan goes down, we lose some guys, and now all of a sudden you're back in that same spot, but now you don't have that 101. The 101 next year is worth more than the 101 this year, as crazy as that sounds. At this point, Caleb Williams is going to be worth more than what Bijan Robinson is. And that's absurd because of where he's at right now if everything goes the right way. So do not trade that 24 first for anything. I'm in an area here where it's not
Give
safe.
yourself the option, right? If you need to wait another year, you still have the ability to capitalize on that. And you can always adjust. Give yourself those options.
Yeah. So the first principle that I want to look at is in step 3, you got to determine where we're going. If you are not all in, we continue to insulate, right? We continue to trade back. For me, 1 through 6 is absolute chalk. It's Bijan Robinson, Stroud, Young, Richardson, however you want to play it. Jackson Smith and Jigba and Gibbs, and those are, if you're using trade calculators, if you're using the value chart that I'm working on, if you're using those things, plug the names in, like, who they are. It's done. There is no landing spot for Will Levis, for Jordan Addison, for Quentin Johnston, for Zach Charbonnet that's going to put them above those guys, period. Like, the talent level between 1 through 6 and then the drop off to 7 is drastic. So at this point, you're not going to be able to trade into the top 6. It is so hard, John. I mean, right now I'm looking at trades. I put it out there on Twitter. Would you rather have the 7 and 8 or the 5? People want the 5. In last year's class, that would have got you Chris Olave and Jamison Williams for Drake London. And that would have been a great trade, but this year it just looks like there's that gap, and people don't want to leave that area, and I think you would agree with that. That's one where I am seeing, when we talk about insulating right now, you have the 101 and you're not ready. I saw a trade today, Chris Olave and a mid-24 first. Yeah. If that is truly a mid-24 first, that is a smash, except because then you're going to build around those wide receivers, and you can move off of Bijan, move off of those quarterbacks. And I think being able to do that and insulating with those 24 first is huge. The most important position right now we have to address, and this is going to be a very fluid process, is the quarterback, right? We want you to build around those super flex quarterbacks. And you and I were talking, are you going to win it all with Stroud and Young as your quarterbacks this year? Yeah. I don't think so. There are very few years where those are your guys. You need those elite quarterbacks to win. So if you get to an area where you and I are both there, we were talking about it in Smash 7, I had Trey Lance. I packaged him up with the 102, and I moved that to get Jalen Hurts because I have 101 through 105, also 19 and 111. So now I'm in an area where it's like, we don't know. The NFL doesn't know when they are evaluating quarterbacks where they're at. They get a 30% hit rate. So it's like, why don't we alleviate some of that risk and package up? And I know you and I were talking about that, off air here. Even if it's like you have Deshaun Watson as your QB1. That's an area where you use that capital. I think you could move Deshaun Watson in the 102 and move up to that Mahomes, Allen, and even Jalen Hurts area.
Right. Step 3, open the box. That's the way you do it.
You can tell John and I haven't been able to interact the way we wanted to, so we're just kind of like getting some of that out there.
You got to mixing it up a little bit here. No, you really do got to think about this with the QBs, right? Many of these punts, you really had very weak QBs, or you had like a Deshaun Watson, perfect punt candidate. Many of you have that. So we're going to talk this through. If you have, like, for example, in Smash 5, I've got picks 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7. Probably 4 of those picks are going to be QBs. You're looking at many people now have Anthony Richardson 101, or maybe you still have Stroud or Bryce Young. That 2 through 4 is going to be those 3 guys nearly every time. Well, if you have 2 or all 3 of those picks, you're not going to need them all on your roster. We talked about this, but if you do want to contend, the QB3 on your roster is kind of a nice to have. You can always make a trade later, but it is a bit of a luxury. You don't need to draft all 4 of these guys. And if you have someone like Deshaun Watson, maybe the play here is packaging one of these top picks with Watson and upgrading to an absolute sure thing at QB. We've been talking about on the pod, these safe guys that just got their money contracts, Mahomes, Hurts, Josh Allen, that you start there, then you start looking at that next tier. And if you can upgrade there off of Deshaun Watson, or just trading the 102 and maybe a lower first, or maybe you're packaging a couple of different assets here on your team to upgrade, that's really worth considering. So you need to really know and capitalize on Superflex market value with some of these picks. As much as you want to have maybe all these rookie QBs on your roster, you do need to also consider the other parts of your roster. And if you want to contend, you need to really consider moving some of those. Now's one of the best times to do this. Start scoping out the other teams in your league. Who needs QBs? Who's maybe ready for a rebuild, right? So part of this is assessing your league as well. So this step 3 is going to be pretty important when you're working through all of that.
You are not winning a dynasty championship if you do not have at least one, if not 2 top 12 quarterbacks. We talked about that big section. Then it's Burrow, Herbert, Lamar, Fields, Lawrence, Murray, Prescott, Deshaun Watson. If you do not have at least one of them, if not 2, it's not going to happen.
2 would be perfect. Yeah.
And I'm okay with taking the 2 and the 3. It's a matter of where you're at. Taking the 2 and the 3 and getting Burrow or Herbert. I'm okay with giving the 103 and a 24 first for Justin Fields, for Trevor Lawrence. Taking the 103. We talked about a deal the other day where we worked with Dom Munoz where we went 102 and we turned 102 into and some other ancillary pieces into Kyler Murray and Kenneth Walker, who I'm like absolutely in love with this year.
Munoz,
so there's so many different ways that you can play this out, but the most important thing is we're looking at that super flex quarterback position first. And if there is a scenario where you go ahead and you draft all 4 of them. I think that's a deep rebuild because let's be honest, 2 of them probably don't hit. 2 of like if I had to guess, I would say in this class we'd be lucky if 3 hit, 2 likely hit. There's going to be that bust in there. There's going to be those situations. So why not mitigate that risk? Like we talk about that in the rebuild process all the time. Cut down your risk and give yourself the most insulation. And that's the obvious way to do it, is just to move into that area.
Yeah,
The
bingo.
What I've started to do, and we talk about insulation, is I'm moving it into areas where I'm like, okay, it's time to move forward. So we're done with the rebuild, right? If you're in those teams where you need to fill in now, we need to fill in the running backs, we need to fill in the tight ends, we need to get those wide receivers back. So, and I know we keep referencing our leagues, and that's so it's easier for you guys to see those actual pieces. So in Smash 1, I ended up trading Jamison Williams, someone else's 24 first, and a 25 second for Jalen Waddle. So now I have Jalen Waddle, who we're alleviating that risk. Is there a risk to Jalen Waddle? No. Jalen Waddle is a locked and loaded top five dynasty wide receiver. Yep. Jamison Williams, on the other hand, yes, he has a wide range of outcomes. So I'm moving a guy like Jamison Williams. I'm moving a guy like Treylon Burks, and I'm trying to get a absolute stud and alpha for that in that area, making sure those wide receivers are set. The next thing that I did, we always talk about tight ends are the last piece of the puzzle. I had 5 firsts, so I moved the 111 for for Dallas Goedert. You know, I got Jalen Hurts on the brain when I'm going back and forth. But for Dallas Goedert, who I have as a top 6 dynasty tight end, now the team's ready to ball, right? Now they just need the running backs, and we're going to add those in from your rookie draft. So that's where that is. If you're in a deeper one, I mean, at Smash 3, I have Jordan Love as my QB1. That's just how it is. Breece Hall's my RB1. Jamar Chase is my wide receiver 1, and then there's just a bunch of filler. So you have to navigate it where it's going to take Bijan and I'm going to plug him in there. But then you get to, I have, like you said, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I mean, I have all 12 in that one, so it'll be a little bit easier. But I think 1 through 6, you got to at least check your value. But John, what we really got to talk about, what we got to unpack is when you get to 7, right? So 7 to me, if you're in a casual league, is the new hot zone, because someone's going to get excited about the wrong player and draft them above Jahmyr Gibbs, and you are just going to get an RB1 for the next 5 years. Like, I'm just, we've gone back and forth on the process. It's just like, we went JSN, we went Gibbs. They're both going to be absolute studs. When we get to 7, this is what I'm starting to do. If I'm ready, I have an offer in Smash 3, the 107 and a late 24 first for Kenneth Walker. All right, I'm getting rid of that risk, right? Zach Charbonnet is my 7. I love Zach Charbonnet. Let's say Zach Charbonnet gets drafted in the 3rd round now, and he goes to, the Vikings, or he goes to a team there's already a running back in place. Now all of a sudden, I've gotten rid of that risk. Like, there is still 7 through 12 is not, it's not as fluid as 1 through 6. 1 through 6, we know what this is. You've dug deep in this class, and we did the pod yesterday. 7 for us when we actually did it was 7 was Quentin Johnston, 8 was Charbonnet, 9 was Levis, 10 Addison, 11 Flowers, 12 Kincaid, 13 Downs. And I love that area. But if you are going and you're pushing the chips all in, is anyone out of that group winning you a title year 2?
Well, so this is such an important topic, and I actually just put out a full thread on Twitter. Go check that out at dynasty_trades. I put my last set of pre-draft rankings for Superflex and 1QB, and then I talked about exactly this thing. What are we doing right now with these early rookie drafts and these picks? And exactly what you just said. There's 2 reasons why if I'm at 107 and maybe 108, I'm very, very likely trading down. So now's a good time to shop it. You just got into this long list of people that are kind of in that same tier. So why are you not going to just trade down in the tier? Could somebody possibly emerge as the true consensus 107? Maybe. But there's so many ballers in here that you could easily convince yourselves that you can have similar value. You may as well trade down to late first, 111, 112, pick up new assets, pick up. Maybe it's a 24 first that we just talked about, right? Or you're picking up a couple of seconds or another asset that you need to fill out that roster. So that's reason number 1, because of the tier that exists right now for that set of players. The other reason, though, is I just want off of Will Levis. He's going to be going at 107, 108. I don't want to have anything to do with this guy. I was kind of talking about it
I know we did the consensus rankings. You have him at 20. Mung has him at 6. You know, Snoop Nerdboy and I had him somewhere in the middle in that 10 to 12 range. And that seems to be a guy where if you're moving off those, I slightly disagree with you as far as 7 and 8, because I do think as much as I was talking about Charbonnet, if Charbonnet gets that right landing spot, he's a 3-down back. If Jordan Addison goes to the Giants or Jordan Addison goes to the right, or, you know, in that right area, I think he moves into that 8. 9 through 12, absolutely. But maybe best case scenario. That's because if they don't get the ideal landing spots, the talent between 7 and 12, the difference between Jordan Addison and Josh Downs is not as massive as you would think. You know,
could
like
definitely
in that area.
Argue, it's definitely not consensus. And I've had a lot of people like, why do you have Levis so low? That's kind of dumb because of the QB market value. I agree. I'm just saying I'm not going to end up much with him, but I'm also smart enough to know if there's some QB needy teams that missed out on those top 3 guys, they absolutely are going to pay up to get Levis, who, you know, could get it. The other thing is maybe trade it now, because there's a chance that Levis actually does tumble in the draft. And what happens is the market value of 107 could actually end up taking a hit there too. And you're right. I mean, maybe it's 108, maybe it's actually 109. You have to stay somewhat fluid. So that's kind of the range that we're talking about. But I like trading down there and picking up other assets and let someone else kind of take the risk on a guy like Will Levis. So I think that's really important, and especially if you've kind of already got your QB set, you picked up Richardson or Stroud or Young, or maybe you have a Watson, or you traded up for a better QB. Take advantage of the market value there and bail on that pick there and get something better for your roster.
That's beautiful analysis. The other thing that I'm doing, and I've started to do this, right? So I'm like, depending on what your roster looks like, I'm still holding out on 7 there, John, so I'm not moving out.
Okay.
8, what I've been doing is I'm talking to guys right now. You know, I've said, hey, I have 8 through 12. Is anybody interested in getting in here? You know, it's going to be a 24 first and a veteran.
Right.
So the veteran running backs, the Derrick Henrys, the Alvin Kamaras, the Aaron Jones, Joe Mixon, Dalvin Cook, they are cheaper in startups. They are cheaper in rookie, you know, in actual trade value than they will ever be. Because as soon as the NFL draft is over, the stock on these guys who don't get competition bounces right back. So what I'm doing is I am taking that 108 and I'm cashing in on the rookie fever. And I'm saying, hey, brother, you know, like right now it looks like, you know, you want to get in on this draft. Give me a 24 first and Aaron Jones, and we got a deal. So now all of a sudden going from 108 that could be Charbonnet, could be, you know, whatever it happens to be. Now I get the insulation of that 24 first. I'm moving into another fantastic class, and then I'm getting Aaron Jones for production. You know, and if you're a wide receiver and you got like the 112, hey, give me a 24 first and Nuke. Nuke's value as soon as he's traded is going to bounce back. Like, as crazy as it sounds, he is even if you're in a rebuild, he is a buy, because at the minute he's traded from the Cardinals, the value is going to go back up.
Just buy low market value. Yeah.
You have to look at look at your team. So we assessed our teams. John, we got to assess other teams, right?
Exactly.
Like if you go to the guy that's all in, he's not going to trade you Alvin Kamara and his first next year in that area, and you don't want his first. You want to target those guys that are like on the way towards their rebuild, or those guys that are at that middle range, that teams 5 through 8 that are saying, man, if I just got the 109 in this year's class, I think I would be ready to compete again. And this is not, that area of the draft is not what that's for this year, you know? So I think you're really going to be able to cash in right now on the rookie fever, even before draft day, of saying, hey, yo, I got the 110, give me your 24 first, and give me Alvin Kamara. You know, you don't need him anyways, and I'll throw you something else back. And I think you're really going to be able to you're going to be shocked at what kind of just value you're going to get back, because everybody gets that rookie fever. Either do it now or do it on the clock, because when you're on the clock, you can play around with that a little bit more, where it's like,
no doubt.
Now you got 12, you know, your rookie draft, you got 11 guys in the room. You never have that in Dynasty. You know, you just don't. That we all have busy lives. You never have 11. Audience. But when you do that rookie draft, they're all right there. They're all in there. And then it's like a matter of time, say, hey, who wants in on this? This class is special.
Yeah. Blood in the water at that point. See what the best offer is. Like, shop it a little bit. And look, I think that coming back to this, like, kind of getting into late first, if you're eyeing some of these teams and you're pretty confident that they're going to end up as a lower end team and it's going to be an early 24 first, see if you can get that 24 first. I mean, as a reminder, like you got not only Caleb Williams, but Drake May, another dual threat quarterback, a wide receiver that we would all put ahead of anyone, even including JSN, Marvin Harrison Jr. By the way, like go check out what the Ohio State coach just said about all of the Ohio State wide receivers he coached. He actually had Marvin Harrison Jr. number one. Then he had JSN. Then he got to Garrett Wilson, Terry McLaurin, and Olave, just to give you an idea of where JSN is at and where Marvin Harrison Jr. will be. There's other guys at Ohio State, for example, Trevion Henderson. These are some ballers that you, again, may want to consider, see if you can pick up more of those 24 first assets and maybe just get out of this lower end of the first round. Maybe you don't really trust Quentin Johnston. Okay, there's quite a bit of risk there. Like we've talked about it. Mm-hmm. There's a little bit of concern on other guys that we've been breaking down. You're getting into some of these other running backs like that Kendre Miller or Zach Evans. I like some of these guys, but there is some level of risk, and you can actually maybe pick up a couple of assets and build over that 2-year period and end up coming out way ahead with other elite picks that are going to come in for you next year.
Mm-hmm. And this step 4, this whole packaging thing, there's a lot of different principles, so that's why we're kind of going that. The other thing you got to look at, and I know I said no one's trading out of 101 through 106. But that's a sharp league. There's those leagues where you have those home leagues. The guys are just coming out of the woodworks. They're like, oh, it's April. I'm going to pay attention to what's going on, Mm-hmm. And I've put together some values here where if you look at it right now, like the 107 and the 109 is dead even with the 105. If you can package that up where you have multiple picks and mm-hmm. you're trying to consolidate, if you can move into that area, I would almost go if you can go 107 and 111 and to get even just to move up to 106, that is a huge move to get Gibbs because
tiers are really important.
People don't look at the tiers. Right now, for me, it's Bijan by himself. It's 2 through 5 are mm-hmm. right there. Gibbs is in a tier by himself. I've moved him slightly off of where JSN is because I moved JSN into the quarterback range. I know that's crazy for some people, but that's where that at. To me, 7 and 8 are a tier, 9 through 12 are a tier, and then 201 through 205 are a tier. And we start to be able to package some of these late firsts together. You have 10 mm-hmm. and 11. Let's move 10 and 11 to see if we can get up to 6. Let's move 10 and Javonte Williams to get up to 4. You know what I mean? Like move some of these, play with some of these analysis, play with some of these values. I think the tricky part, and we talked about it a lot, you don't have to get set in of like, I have to trade both these picks. You can move around, you can upgrade and make yourself feel better. You can move around with those draft picks and a running back, get a different draft pick and a running back that's going to play well for your particular team and mitigate some of that risk. And I think right now, I'm hearing so many teams, and my leagues are idle right now. I'm making offers out there daily, and people are like, well, I'm not ready for the draft. I got to see what's going on. If you've been listening to us, you are ready. You're ready to take that next step. Yeah. If you are paying attention to the Patreon, we have bonus pods out there. Snoog mm-hmm. put out a couple of them. Nerd Boy did. You and I are going to record a couple. We got threads in there. We got all of our rankings. Profiles. Dude, it is it's fantastic.
Fun time of year.
It is, and I think being in there is going to even help you more when we get to draft day.
Joining the fun.
There's going to be a separate room where it's like, hey, who do you want here? Like
the clock. Who are
you drafting on the clock?
What are we doing?
It's going to be huge, and you're going to get instant feedback because your girlfriend, your wife, and your coworkers are tired of hearing about your rookie drafts. But Dad and John, we want to hear about it. Like we're there. Yeah. So, John, let's talk about packaging those picks up because I know you want to pick 1 through 6, but when you get to there, we got to start packaging some of those picks. And I think, you can either use them to package up or you can use them to buy players. If you can move 109 and a 24 first and get Chris Olave, or 109, 108 and a 24 first, like I said, to get Kenneth Walker, you're trying to get those young elite assets, giving up a 24 first to get that proven area where you're moving from Jamison Williams in the 110 to get to, Drake London and something else. We want to get something that's a lot safer when we're moving from year 1 to year 2.
Yeah, this is really important. And I'll even almost give myself some advice. Like when we all get rookie fever and you stacked up all these rookie picks, there's part of you that actually just dreams up these rosters where you have every single guy. I mean, you had the Infinity Stones over here with all 12 first round picks, and you kind of get addicted to this idea of I'm just going to take everybody, right? But the reality is it's not exactly the smartest way to build a roster. But let's come back to what we talked about in some of the earlier steps here, right? If you're going to go contend right now, then you absolutely should consider, taking some of these early second round picks because they're going to be loaded with running backs that could absolutely be league winners, right? We know for a fact every year, a lot of these starting running backs go down. Some of them could be outright starters that are still available in the early second, or they, over the first 4 to 6 games, they earn more time and then eventually pass the starter. So you may want to consider holding on to those. But if you're really not sure yet, the last thing you want to do, again, is push in too early and end up with all these aging running back assets. You want to consider, in this case, like you said, package up those second round picks and turn them into first round picks, turn them into 24 first, like we've been saying multiple times, or those young assets that are more of the sure thing proven. So it could be a couple of seconds, could be a first and a second. Definitely shop those kind of things. And there's, especially in leagues that are a little bit more shallow, this is an absolute money strategy. And I'm always surprised that a lot of my league mates haven't really caught on. But like throwing out FFPC as an example, if you're in an FFPC league, you have really thin rosters. They were just cut down. You have like 16 total guys. Or you're in a 10-team league. For those of you that are listening that on 10-team leagues, it's really about having those premium assets that are going to give you some type of positional advantage week to week. So packaging up multiple players and getting that better player is fantastic. So if you've listened to the pod, you followed these rebuild strategies, you're probably just chocked full loaded with assets to use. I mean, in Smash 5, I've got 7 firsts, 6 seconds. I've got multiple 24 first seconds. Now what are we going to do with all of them? Packaging them up to upgrade and fill out your roster with elite assets. I mean, that is the move here. So, just keep it in mind. You're always looking at depth. I mean, it doesn't work for every roster, right? Like there's 14 team leagues out there. There's some where you have 3, 4, 5 flex positions. You may want to hold on and avoid packaging and just make sure you give yourself more options, more depth. But I think in general, most leagues that we are in, Smash leagues included, if you can package things up here, like you were just talking about, you should do it. What are some of the recent trades or packages that you've seen? I know you already threw a couple
you
out.
Saw I was looking on there. So a couple. One I just did was I traded 108. I'm sorry. I traded 108, 201, and Wan'Dale Robinson for the 104 with Alex Long. Shout out to him. Awesome guy. Him and I have gotten 2 or 3 trades done in Smash 8 here. We're just cranking them out.
That's a fun one.
That was a fun one. For me, I was moving up. I had tons of picks. For him, he's moving where he wanted a little bit of depth. It's just kind of a fun move to just kind of move around there. I talked about Kenneth Walker. I'm going to keep talking about Kenneth Walker. I bought in Smash 7. I gave up 111, Aaron Jones, David Montgomery for Kenneth Walker. Again, you're moving multiple assets. You're packaging into a way where you want to be elite. You want those guys because, the 111 is value once it's drafted is going to change. The 111 is no longer sought after by the other 11 teams. It's a player now. It's in that area where and it can go down in value, Right. But Kenneth Walker, that's a guy where we saw what he can do his rookie year. If Kenneth Walker gets injured, guess what? I mean, Breece Hall went down. He went from the RB2 to the RB2. He did not move down in value. Kenneth Walker goes down. Right. We talk about that a lot where it's like, hey, I don't have a lot of depth, but you have Josh Allen. You have those elite assets where you can, even if they get hurt, you trade them down and kind of package that way. John, I'm looking at the second round, and I'm just looking right now, in my estimation, especially with the way Ibanaconda, performed at his pro day,
Right.
with Tank Bigsby in there, with Kendre Miller, with Tajay Spears. If he clears his physicals and gets drafted the right way,
Right.
Devin A-Chain. I mean, Sean Tucker, maybe Zach Evans. There could be, even if Roshan Johnson gets the right. There could be 8 running backs taken in the second round. The handcuffs that you have on your team, they're not going to exist for too much longer. This is a time where if you can use Deontay Foreman to move up a couple of picks, even if it's to move from 207 to 205, for them it might sound great, but you're going to move up a tier. And I think with those 6 to 7, maybe even 8 running backs that are going to go in that second round, they're going to ruin some jobs. They could even get some ideas where they move into that number 2 that is behind an aging running back. You get the right running back, you get Tank Bigsby goes behind Dalvin Cook or goes behind Derrick Henry. Some of these guys are just going to increase in value. I got to say the second round's about a 22 to 28% hit rate, but the running backs are much, much, much higher. You get in the second round, we talk it's Tillman, it's Mims, it's not a very sexy wide receiver group after a couple guys. It's Mayer, it's Kincaid. I moved Kincaid into my first, but if you can get those tight ends there, but then it's going to be just absolute smashes when it comes to the running backs. So I'm not moving all my seconds, but if you can package them up and you have like in Smash 3, I have 1 through 12. I had 7 seconds. Now I have 205, 206, 211, 212. And in 211 and 212, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try to package both of them and see where I can move and try to get into that area, because second rounders, I think, are going to have good value this year, but at the back end there, it's going to be a little bit different. Third rounders, John, if it's year 2, move them. I firmly believe third rounders, when you're talking 8 to 12% hit rate, I use them as capital all the time. If I can use a 24 third to move up in that second, to move from 205 to 202, where I know I'm going to get an opportunity to get a Kincaid, a Flowers, that right guy, Hendon Hooker starts moving up here if he gets round 1 draft capital. Use your thirds as a tool to move around. Use that in that area to just move yourself into those areas. And the second round this year, I think, is going to be fun. I think the more I do this, John, like 9 through 12 don't seem too much different than 201 through 204. And we've called that the smash zone, and it really is, but I don't see a huge difference. If I can take 10 and a running back, like if I can take 10 and a Joe Mixon and package it for 204 and a Javonte Williams or a Nick Chubb, like to move around with the perception of, I'm moving from a second to a first for your casuals.
Yeah, and I think that we've talked about this a little bit on the pod, but you really kind of want to move either direction there with these kind of late firsts that are holding value, and there's rookie fever. Like we already talked about, if you can move up into the top 6, boom, you got to smash that. If you can't, then I really like the idea of trading down into the early second because of what you just described. Like, we're just talking about this tier of guys that are out there, and there's always this discount just because of the optic, because of it starts with the 2 and not a 1. So that's something that you're onto there. And I really like those values in early seconds. I'm probably, like you said, trading handcuffed running backs that are just about to get decimated with all these running backs coming into the league. Like you mentioned, Deontay Foreman. You got guys out there like Tyler Algier. We just saw, Damian Pierce. Look what happened to him recently. I've definitely seen all these mock drafts, and people just can't see it coming. But some of these guys are about to get blown up. There's going to be either a 1A, 1B situation coming. Like I know as hot as Rachaad White's market value looks like right now, do we really think Tampa Bay is not going to bring in another running back after losing Lenny Fournette?
John, I'm seeing him late first draft capital right now, and it's like if Bijan falls to 15, he's gone.
That's what I'm saying.
And that's I do think Rachaad White is a superior talent to Michael Carter, but we were starting to get those Michael Carter vibes this time last year. And they're like, he's going to have the keys to don't be buying running backs. Yeah. How long ago? That was January. I put out that article where it was like, This is
That's
a
right.
volatile
Hope you
position.
listen.
Don't buy. We
Yeah.
do have a formula here at Smash Accept, and that's kind of part of the deal, And I think
Right.
really,
So start scanning those rosters, trade them for seconds, give yourself more flexibility, get younger. I mean, I really like that as one strategy to be coming away with too. Like, hey, you like Isaiah Pacheco? Okay, yeah, he looked great, but do we really think Andy Reid isn't going to bring in more playmakers to that KC offense? What about New England? Like, is Ramondre Stevenson as safe as we think he is? I love the guy,
mhm.
and
Yeah.
I've even bought him in some cases,
Well,
but
they're talking about them drafting
that's what
a
I'm saying.
high level
You
running
think you're
back.
going
And
to replace Damian Harris? Like, think about it.
I,
So I know you got James Robinson there, but like some of
I
these
made an
guys are going
offer
to
today with
surprise me.
Ramondre. I
Okay,
offered
okay,
AJ Brown and Ramondre Stevenson for Kenneth Walker, Traylon Burks plus. I forget what the plus is there, but I'm like, hey, if we can
okay.
move off that, if that starts to come
Reviving
off a
here.
little bit. Yeah, absolutely. And guys, just another quick plug for the Patreon. This is the time where you guys want to make those trades. We got a comment. We read one last week, another one here from Spence. He appreciates the timeliness on the questions that you've had on there and all of your DMs. Love the pods. Beside player profile, you guys have become one of my favorite listens and go-tos for this advice. I mean, guys, if you're able to get there, you have a community there where people are answering questions quickly. I'm a bit of a degenerate. I'm answering them in there as fast as possible, and we're getting you guys the information that you guys are looking for. This rookie draft is going to be fun. We want to just make sure you don't get too rigid. You can be fluid in the process and be able to move back. Hopefully we gave you some things here where you're going to be able to move and give you some ideas of how to move into that area. I hope that you guys did it the right way. Again, if you guys built around quarterbacks and wide receivers, like we've been saying, now's the time where you have 110 through 112 and you're just going in there and you're buying Dallas Goedert, you're buying TJ Hawkinson, you're buying Pat Freiermuth, you're buying that tight end to get you into that next level. Even if you're paying maybe 1.4 for Travis Kelce. I mean, I think that's an absolute smash to get yourself. You have the quarterbacks already. Get that final piece. And I think
Right.
the more you guys do this, the more comfortable. A lot of you guys have been like, hey, Dad, I'm not comfortable with this year one punt. I'm not comfortable with the rebuild. Good. That means you're doing it right. Like if you are not comfortable with it right off, in order to grow as a person, in order to grow as a dynasty owner, you need to do some things that throw you off your comfort zone.
Definitely.
And I know you honestly have become a better dynasty owner just by starting to think that way.
Yeah, and then just loading up on all these picks, what did it do? It caused me to really want to study the rookies that much more. I've just really gone much deeper into film and analytics, really looking at these guys, comparing my notes and how I reviewed film with other major analysts. And we got some of my absolute favorite, most respected analysts coming on the pod. Matt Waldman, like the legend in the industry, is going to be coming
next
on
week, baby.
Next week. Can't wait for that one. But I think it's really just you gotta remind yourself, like, think about how much these picks have gained in value. Like these punts just make so much sense, and you may want to try it now with the 24 class, getting them in the startup, trading for more picks while they are still reasonable values. 6 months, a year later, these things are all gold mines. So you have just increased the equity of almost every asset on your roster with all these picks. Now it's a fun time to kind of do something with all those assets, and it doesn't have to be making the pick every time. Have fun with it, make some moves. This is the pod that helps you break that down. Do you want to wait another year and kind of combine 23 and 24 classes, or have you assessed the league, assessed your team, and you're ready to push it in? We've given you a lot of different things to think about. I mean, I'll just come back to another one that I throw out there. You're not going to really be able to get a lot out of these rookie tight ends. We've seen a couple of exceptions. Okay, Pat Freiermuth looked pretty good. We hyped up Kyle Pitts, though. We hyped up all these other guys. Tight end takes a long time to develop. You're looking at 3 years often before you really start seeing the production. It's just the way the NFL is set up. So as much as I love Dalton Kincaid and Mayer, they're coming to this tight end. Last thing, you wait on it, but you really need to consider moving rookie picks and buying those vets. I'm coming back to your 104 for Travis Kelce. Makes a ton of sense to do that if you're ready to go ahead and push in those chips, that last kind of roster position that you have to figure out. So I don't know if I jumped ahead to your next step.
No, you're perfect, man. Because we're absolutely right there where it's It's buying Darren Waller for the 203. It's buying Greg Dulcich for the 202.
Yeah,
It's
love me some Waller this year.
Love both of those guys. It's adding those type things. John, we talked about it from the startup perspective. Like I showed the cascade where I went from 312 all the way back from 10. I cascaded 4 times to move back to 1109. Would have taken ETN, but I ended up getting David Montgomery, 24 first, a 25 first, and a 25 second. And now you're in a spot where people keep saying to me, but Dad, you got too many picks. Picks are liquid currency.
Yes.
That's why I will not do a draft.
Safest, yeah.
You do a punt, move yourself back.
Yeah.
Because now you're in an area where, like I am in Smash 3, where I have 17 picks out of the top 24. I know that's insane. I just wanted to say it again out loud. No, but
it feels good, baby.
I also have what's guaranteed to be the 101 next year, and I'm not moving that at all. So when you have 17 picks and you have a 10-team starting lineup and you already have 5 good starters, do the math. You don't need to make all of your picks. This is where people are going to come to you, man. Like, you got the picks. Everybody's got rookie. Everybody's got rookie fever. They all want those. So
I'm just
don't make the picks quickly. Exactly. That's what. Dude, there we go. Seems like so long ago. But you don't have to make all of those picks. They are currency to move you where you need to be. And if you're not ready, there's still currency to say, you know what? 24 class is cheaper than the 23 right now. I can move back to next year and I can add something. We talked about adding an Alvin Kamara type, but I mean, what if it's, you move from the 112 to a 24 first and add Wan'Dale Robinson, a young upside wide receiver, a Josh Palmer, some of those guys who, they might not pan out, but at worst, you move from 112 this year to 112 next year. At best, you move yourself way up and you get a much better prospect. You get a much higher draft pick because a lot can change in a year. And I think the more you insulate, the more you take care of those things, the more you move back. If you're not ready, I mean, this is just fun to me. I'm like unpackaging all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, this is great.
If you're not ready, Bijan Robinson is your new version of what you do in a startup with Patrick Mahomes. You trade back from 101 to 104, and right now 102 and 105 seem to be, you can get the 102 and the 105 for 101. That's a smash, right, except for me, because then at that spot I'm going to take Stroud or Richardson, and then at 5 I'm going to take JSN or Gibbs, but maybe even again you cascade back, you get
trade down again.
You don't need that quarterback, but you still get that. Exactly. Move off of Stroud, get a 24 first, and get another running back to fill in that spot, or another wide receiver that really just balances you out. That 101 is the biggest lottery ticket you own. Do not draft it right off the bat when you get on the clock. Yeah, exactly.
Gotta be a smash, man. Gotta be a smash.
Get what you need. I have 3 of them. I haven't traded them yet because I feel like they're not going to accumulate more value, but people are going to get more antsy, and they're going to want him, and they're going to see where Bijan Robinson is in a uniform, and he is worth more in value than he can ever put on the football field. And I know you hate that because you love Bijan Robinson, but he would have to be he would have to be prime LaDainian Tomlinson for 5 years to make your money back.
Yeah, and one thing I want to do is kind of hype up this project that you've been working on with your trade value chart. And here's what I'm going to tell you. You have looked at some of the other trade value charts out there, and I'm not going to start throwing shade, but I'm just telling y'all, they're not always in tune with the dynamic values that we see, right? In the Smash Patreon, we have people that are doing startups all the time. We're doing trades constantly, and we have a finger on the pulse in assessing what each of these picks is worth. We really do. Now, there's plenty of other solid pros out there, but I'm just telling y'all, it will really help to have a trade value chart that's kind of consistently updated, that has these dynamic values that maybe even some of the major websites aren't exactly completely up to speed on yet. Right.
I was on one today that said the difference between the 101 and the 102 is the 112. And I'm just
that's what I'm talking about. There's no way.
You're telling me,
don't settle for that.
You're going to get Dalton Kincaid and CJ Stroud for Bijan Robinson. Then you're just doing it. You're just doing it wrong. Like, done.
Right.
move off of that.
That's the point. So we're actually really trying to just build up this community and build up this intelligence to really nail it, so that you can kind of trust that, like, as of right now, I'm on the clock. I'm going to look at this value chart that you're building, and I'm gonna work right off of that with confidence that no, I'm getting max value, and I'm not necessarily trusting some other source, and I'm settling, like you just mentioned, like that you just lost that trade if you went off that trade value chart.
And to look at it right now, and Adam Armour's been working on it for me. I mean, if you look at it, I have everything where you can go the whole way across what the 101 is worth, what players that is worth, how much capital there is in between there, what you can trade. You guys have loved the charts where you say, hey, this player is Bijan's here, then the 102 to 105 range. You'll be able to look across that, see what the equivalent of that is in rookie picks, and try to go from there and see if I have the 105, who can I buy for that? Who's the market value on that? Because you don't want to sell it cheap. You want to get yourself seeing that the 105 is someone that I can buy Travis Etienne, or I can buy Drake London, or I can buy, that's what you're looking for, of like, where can I move around? The more knowledge you get, the more tools you have. And we're trying to make sure we're doing that at Smash Accept in our Patreon. Hit it up. And we're excited with what's moving forward. We're excited to help you guys with your rookie drafts. We're excited for year 2 punts, man. Like, John, I feel like if I don't make the championship in Smash 1, Smash 3, and Smash 7, I mean, I said I'm 8 for 8, so I got to go 11 for 11.
Let's see it.
Let's get it done. Now people aren't going to want to trades, and I just gave away all my tips.
I know, but hey, we're just throwing it out there, right? This is stuff we're learning, and we learned from the community, and we learned from guys like Waldman that are going to be coming in next week. There's some other great analysts coming on, and let's just face it too, like, there's going to be some pretty significant changes after the draft occurs. Like, you're going to want to continue to hang with us on the pod to determine what happens with these landing spots. We're going to look at coaching situations, depth charts, fits for the blocking and running schemes. There's so much that you have to really consider and apply to kind of like, we have right now, my tiers and rankings are based on projected draft capital. Like, I'm going to be off on some of these. I'm going to have some misses. We don't really know what the NFL is truly thinking. It's always fun. There's always some huge shocks and surprises. So we're going to be here to break it down for you. Like, we just gave you, like, kind of finger on the pulse, what's happening with these picks. I kind of have a feeling those top 6 may still stay locked in where they are, but things are going to move around. We want to help you really find the right set of players that right now, it really helps, again, to have these tiers based on the talent, but things will change. We don't want to overreact too much, right? We don't want any CEH situations where we overreact to a landing spot and overlook the talent discrepancies that we've been analyzing for the past, 6 months, in my case, a year or more. So you got Debbie guys that have been doing it longer than that. So you got to really assess that too. That's part of our process. We still have a few more weeks here to do that, break that down pre-draft, but be ready to kind of get with us, jump into Patreon, and work through what changes happen at the NFL draft. I cannot wait for this draft. I've never looked forward to a draft this much in my life. It's going to be a big one.
And year 1 punts, the way that it's kind of brought you in on that.
That's right. That's right.
Guys, Smash 1 through 8 drafted May 1st. Big news. I talked to Mung yesterday. Smash 9, the startup, is going to be open to the guys in the Patreon. We will be doing Smash 9 of them, John.
Did I catch a niner in there?
The first year was just 2, and now Smash 9, Mung will be in there. It is going to start the same day, Monday, May 1st. If you guys want in that, DM me. It's going to go to the guys in the Patreon first, but I know a lot of you guys have been asking to get in those. The biggest thing about Smash Leagues is, John, there is a huge problem right now in the Dynasty community after COVID. All these leagues where you had commissioners you can't trust, guys just creating leagues and running away and bailing. Right. Smash Leagues, we have not had a single issue with that. You have us as commissioners, where we stake our reputation on that. We try to be as what's the word I'm looking for, as fair as possible with everybody. For sure. And we're filling those rosters. As soon as one's empty, they're filled within a day. Like, we have a lot of guys that want to get in there. So the league's not going to fold. It's something that you guys can get in there and be excited about. So, guys, I'm excited for this. John's excited for this. We thank you guys for
baby.
tuning in and enjoy that process.